Since the late 1930s, there have been multiple attempts on Hitler's life, all of which either failed or were never set in motion. These attempts discouraged conspirators to carry out future attempts. But in the summer of 1944, an opportunity arose that enabled the conspirators to exploit Hitler's own emergency action plan in Berlin. This plan was called Operation Valkyrie. In the next 10 minutes, we will be gaining insight from Adolf Hitler, Lieutenant Klaus von Stauffenberg, and General Friedrich Olbrich regarding this assassination attempt.
When did you begin to feel friction against you within your own cabinet?
I felt much of the tension after the British bombed Berlin over the months of 1943. Many of my people grew very angered that the war had reached home and began to point fingers. My popularity and credibility as leader began to decline. Although I never felt much tension from the members of my cabinet, some Germans had begun to think I was destroying the fatherland by engaging in a war with both the communist bastards in the Soviet Union and those pesky Brits.
Were there any signs that indicated an attempt on your life was imminent?
Well, although this wasn't the first attempt at my life, I don't believe it would be one of my own to have done it. I have gotten reports that many women were desperate for the killing to stop. They thought my death would bring this about. Therefore, I surrounded myself with many men to protect me, and I believed I was safe. I had so many security guards and officers surrounding me. How could anything have happened to me, let alone with my own people? I didn't feel any pressure that I might have died that day. I never speculated that someone on the inside was out to kill me.
Friedrich Olbrich was born in Germany in 1888. He fought in the German army during World War I and was later promoted to lieutenant general in 1938. He became disappointed with the leadership of Hitler and soon turned on him. General Olbrich played a key role in the assassination attempt of Hitler on July 20th, 1944.
Why did you decide to assassinate Hitler at that moment? Were there any immediate causes?
During Operation Barbarossa, when we invaded Russia around 1941, I came to realize that Germany might lose the war. The brutal Russian winter of 1941 through 1943 stopped our advance, killing many German soldiers. I began working on a plan with the General Staff that on the surface appeared to be of use against unrest within Germany. In fact, it was a plot to assassinate Hitler and take over the government. One of the many reasons we decided to act was the company Hitler was to keep at this particular meeting. It would disrupt the highest chains of command, offering our group maximum time to complete the coup. It was maximum damage with the least amount of work.
How did you plan on carrying out the assassination attempt?
After the few aborted attempts, we finally decided to initiate Operation Valkyrie on the 20th of July, when Stauffenberg had flown back to the Wolf's Lair. The plan was to plant the briefcase concealing the bomb in a meeting with the Führer. After Stauffenberg had primed the bomb, it would take 10 minutes for the acid to ease through the wire holding back the firing pin from the percussion cap. Stauffenberg would place the briefcase as close to the Führer as possible, then receive the planned phone call and leave the conference room. Soon after, the bomb would detonate, killing the Führer and other high-ranking officers surrounding the conference table.
After the bomb went off, how did you plan to seize power?
We planned to use the Operation Valkyrie, which was an emergency plan that was established by Hitler himself. Operation Valkyrie controls the reserve army in Berlin and was meant to restore law and order in the capital in case of civil unrest. The commander of the reserve army was General Friedrich Fromm. He was the only person who could give out the order to initiate Operation Valkyrie. We either needed to gain his support in this conspiracy or neutralize him somehow to allow us to put Operation Valkyrie into motion. At this point, with Hitler dead, we would initiate Operation Valkyrie and have Fromm activate the reserve army to seize control of Berlin. By killing Hitler and using the reserve army in Operation Valkyrie, we planned to win over any skeptical officers to our cause.
Klaus von Stauffenberg was a German army officer who played a key role in the plot to kill Hitler. He was a central figure in the German resistance which opposed the National Socialist regime. He served in many combat operations in the Sudetenland, Poland, France, and Tunisia. Stauffenberg had once agreed with the Nazis' ways, but soon turned against the group when he saw how the Nazis treated civilians and the Soviet prisoners of war.
How did the attack play out?
The date was set for July 20th, 1944, when I was ordered to attend a meeting with Hitler at the Wolfslager. We felt that our time was running out, the Gestapo was closing in, and the opportunities were becoming pretty rare. The time to strike had come. The meeting was scheduled for 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but was changed to 12:30 shortly after I arrived. I entered the conference room, moved up close to Hitler, and placed the briefcase containing the bomb on the floor right beside him. A few minutes later, I left the room with the excuse of taking a phone call. Instead of it, I left the building and climbed into my car. A couple seconds later, at approximately 12:42, huge explosion ripped right through that building. At first, the guards thought it was an airstrike. They rushed to assist. Yeah. Without wasting any time, I bluffed my way right past the guards at the entrance and sped my way back to the airport to fly to Berlin. Upon the landing, I phoned ahead that Hitler was dead. It was not until I arrived at Operation Valkyrie headquarters that I learned that Hitler had survived.
What went wrong?
It was later that I learned, after I placed the bomb and left the room, that Colonel Brandon had found the briefcase to be in his way, and he moved it to the other side of a heavy leg, right away from Hitler. When the bomb exploded, the stenographer and 4 other officers were killed. 5 others were wounded. Hitler's hand was injured, and his eardrums were punctured. This didn't stop him from giving the visiting former dictator Benito Mussolini a tour of the devastation about 4 hours later.
What was your response to escaping the assassination?
Well, when the explosion went off, the first thing that went through my mind was the Allies were bombing us. I found myself lying by the door next to the conference room. My right elbow hurt severely as I stumbled into the hallway. After I took my own pulse and recomposed myself, I felt more cheerful than I had in many months prior to this, oddly enough. I turned to my secretaries and said, "Well, ladies, things turned out well again. This attempt on my life gave me a long-awaited opportunity to deal with some critics of mine, which I was pleased about. I saw this incident as confirmation to continue the mission Providence has set upon me."
What happened after the attempt? How are you feeling?
Well, the clothes I was wearing were ripped to shreds, but I was left unharmed. After I got into a fresh new uniform, I proceeded to meet with Mussolini. Together we looked at the damage that the bomb caused in the conference room. It was during this that I was informed of an officer leaving in a hurry before the explosion happened. A corporal, tending to the telephone outside the conference room, saw a man with one arm exit the room, without his briefcase, cap, or belt. There was only one man who could fit this description: Colonel Stauffenberg. Our suspicions against Stauffenberg grew as time went on. As the afternoon wore on, it became clear that Stauffenberg was behind this assassination attempt. In mid-afternoon, there were confusing reports coming from Berlin regarding whether I was alive or dead. I began to fear that I was losing control of Berlin. After Mussolini and I parted from afternoon tea, Goebbels, who had a Major Riemer with him, telephoned me. Major Riemer was suspicious whether I was dead or alive, and was unable to discern who was attempting to overthrow me. I spoke directly to Major Riemer, saying to him, "Major Riemer, can you hear me? Do you recognize my voice?" Immediately, he recognized my voice, and I ordered him to restore order to Berlin. Later that night, I sent out a broadcast to the German people.
Ich selbst bin völlig unverletzt. Nur ganz kleine Hautabschürfungen, Prellungen oder Verbrennungen. Ich fasse das als eine Bestätigung des Auftrags der Vorsehung auf, mein Lebensziel weiter zu verfolgen, so wie ich es bisher getan habe.
The assassination attempt on July 20th, 1944, created great fallout in the days following. Once Hitler was confirmed alive, many officers of the conspiracy began to switch sides. Fighting broke out between officers on opposing sides of the coup. Eventually, all members of the conspiracy were rounded up. To wipe away any connection between the conspirators and his involvement in the coup, General Frederick Fromm quickly sentenced Ulbricht, Stauffenberg, and other officers to death for treason. By the next morning, Ulbricht and Stauffenberg were executed. Many other officers and political officials sympathetic to their cause either committed suicide or were also put on trial and executed as well. In the months following the assassination attempt, the Nazi Party cleaned house and forced all members who did not completely support their cause to resign. Members who were directly related and participated in the coup attempt were put on trial and executed. This assassination attempt was the beginning of the end for Hitler. Obvious intentions of this assassination attempt left no doubt in Hitler's mind that the unity of Germany had been shattered. Hitler had backed Germany into such a situation that even military leaders such as Stauffenberg and Ulbricht began to conspire against him. These conspirators were honorable men whose loyalties were towards Germany and not the Nazi Party. The July 20th, 1944 assassination attempt demonstrated that Hitler did not have complete control over the German people and military.